So, welcome to this live. We should be live on LinkedIn for sure. The big question that we have right now is if we are live on Instagram. So, because that's the first time I do that on Instagram, to be honest. But it seems to be okay. So, people, if you are with us today, so just put some likes, some comments. So, hey, we are here. We'd love to hear you and to be sure that we are not alone. I'm so glad to have you, Katy, with me today on this LinkedIn, but today a little bit more than LinkedIn Live. So thank you for being with me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to dive into our conversation on bicultural couples, living abroad, all of the things.
All these things, yes. So maybe before we start going into the subject, can you share about you? Where you live, who you are, what is your past, why are you so passionate about binationality and couple and living abroad and so on?
Yes. So I'm Katie Ressler. By profession, I am a relationship strategist and licensed professional counselor. I'm from the United States, but I've been living in Munich, Germany for 9.5 years now. I have a business here where I support couples who are from different cultures. Usually one is native German, and then and sometimes actually not, sometimes they're mixed, but another is from a different country. uh, I'm married to a German, so it kind of became something where I started noticing, one, I'm working with a lot of couples. Even when I lived in the States, I worked with a lot of military families, and a lot of military families are bicultural and have different they're speaking different languages in the home and things. So this background in this type of work was already there. I just never sat down and connected the dots. Oh my gosh, because I also am in this bicultural relationship, people find it easier to talk about those types of things with me. So the passion for it really is that I got my master's in marriage and family therapy. I always knew I really wanted to help couples in building a better legacy, meaning helping the next generations to see how to have healthier relationships. And from that, I found that I love working with high achievers, the type of people where if you give them a homework assignment, at the end of a session, and they want the homework assignment, and they've done the work the next time they see you. And if they haven't, they're like, hey, but here's my plan to make it happen. And when we have that drive and motivation within us, the change happens in our relationships really fast. And so that was really important to me. On a personal note, I'm a mom of 3. As I shared, my husband is German. We're both entrepreneurs. So it's been such an interesting journey of balancing learning this new culture, learning a new language, raising children who only know basically Germany, and helping them to understand their 2 cultures that they're really, in a sense, from. Um, and weaving in all of my personal journey into the work that I do to support so many. And as you know, one of the projects I'm really working on right now is the women in the relationships I support are typically going through perimenopause, and they're living abroad often. So how to create a community for them where they can get education in English that helps them to feel more aware, educated, understanding of what's going on in their bodies and their minds and in their relationships as they go through this natural change in their lives.
Wow, it's a lot of topics, right? It's all about like being together, but in another country, speaking another language, trying to put things together for ourselves as a person, for our couple, for the children, eventually having the problem that the children, they don't necessarily know the culture of one of the parents, because I mean, it's the case in my case. So 3 children as well, husband, German husband as well, speaking German at home. So we speak German at home. My husband doesn't really speak French. So, and I know that it was a big problem for me at the beginning. I have 2 things that at the beginning was a problem for me. It was, we live in your country, and I feel dumb because of that, because so many things I don't understand. It has even not to do something with the language, but with the culture. And at the
Yes.
beginning, it was like, "What? You don't know that? Yeah, okay, come in my country, and we will see."
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then the culture as well. So I was like, how I am going to be able to give my culture in my family, because I am the only girl, first of all, because I have three boys, and I don't want to be the only foreigners. I
Yeah.
don't want to feel like completely different. So do you have this kind, it was really like the big problem that I had at the beginning. Do you have that as well with the people you coach or you help?
Yeah, there is definitely a sense of how do I bring my culture in when we're living in your home country? The kids are going to school in the way you understood and know it. They're speaking
Exactly.
your language fluently and maybe still learning my language, right? And you add a whole level of complexity if that individual also comes from a multicultural family. So, I work with a lot of men and women whose parents as well were
Yes.
bicultural. And so then it's like, well, I have so many different layers. And maybe the partner that comes from only one cultural background is like, well, there's just too much there. Like, it doesn't feel like our kids are ever going to feel anchored and rooted in who they are. So they should just stick with the country they're from. And I think it does a disservice to our partners when we do that and discount their cultures. It does a disservice to our kids because they will later on in life search for a better understanding of maybe why they look a certain way, why their parent was a certain way, why their family does things a certain way, one side of the family. So it's better to integrate that. And I think it's always the easier road to go with, well, the partner that we live in their country, we do the things they do, we take the vacations they did, we do the holidays that they have.
Yes.
But it is so essential in a bicultural relationship to talk about what traditions and rituals do we want to bring from both. There are certain holidays that we don't celebrate in my family that are American, and there are certain ones that we absolutely do. Like Halloween for me is non-negotiable, and so is Mardi Gras. But I grew up in an area of the United States where Mardi Gras is celebrated. Most of the states doesn't celebrate Mardi Gras. So it was like, this for me is so much a part of my culture, of where I grew up in the States. I want to bring that in. And thankfully my husband loved those things or accepted them enough that it was like, yeah, I
Yeah.
see how much joy it brings you. I absolutely want our children to have that. So that for me was really important. And I think for couples in general, we need to have more discussions about talk about why it's important. Be very careful with the answer because it just is. It's because what I know, it's what I grew up with, because that will start to, like, there'll be no purpose in it. But if you really have the why, what is the tradition there? What is the excitement for you? What is the nostalgia that you want to bring to your kids' lives too? Then it's so much easier to have a discussion about it.
Okay, so it's all about, yeah, understanding ourselves first better
Yeah.
and why we do the things that we do. I did definitely had that at the beginning. So I was like, no, it's French. Like it's French people. We are really like the meal part time is very important. We have our rules.
Yep.
And German culture, it's not the same. So at the beginning, it was like, you cannot do that. It's not okay at all. And I really had to go deeper in order to understand, well, in France, maybe it's not okay, but in Germany, it seems to be really okay. So now, how can I adapt to that? And it's not that it's not okay what it does, but it's different.
Yes. Yes.
It's just different.
One of the big challenges my husband and I have had is, Americans, some of us tend to come off really confident, maybe a little cocky, a little like, yeah, self-assured, and yeah, I know what I'm talking about. Maybe I don't. Well, I really am the type where, like, if I cook a good meal, I'm like, "Ooh, this is good." And it used to offend my husband because he's like, "You're like, tooting your own horn," is what we'd say in the States. Like, "You're like praising yourself. Why are you doing like that's you should be modest about it." And I was like, "No, it's really good food and I made it and I'm proud of myself and I want our children to see that." And he was like, "But we're raising them in a culture where this is going to be seen as rude and being cocky." And I said, I think it's all about how you do it. And our children aren't just German. So they're going to have to, and they're probably going to travel in their lives. They're going to have to learn how to be confident in themselves and also respectful of the culture they're in, but not have to make themselves smaller just because of that.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And that, yeah, there's a lot of pieces like that where it's like, well, this is how we are. This is what we do. Well, it doesn't jive well in this country, but that doesn't mean it has to change. There can be a little bit of adapting, but also there can be an education around why this is important. I have 3 girls. The
Ah,
likelihood they're going to struggle with self-confidence, body issues, all of these things is quite high. The statistics are there, even in Europe, right? So I want to teach them a vocabulary and language now of praising themselves in a good way, not in a like I'm just making myself like inflating myself when it's nothing there, but like I did a good job. I was determined. I worked hard. I'm proud of myself. I want that vocabulary. And
mm.
that to me is very important. But it no blanket statements here. Many Germans, in particular areas of Germany, will feel that that's not being modest and that that's being rude. And, that's something that's not good to teach any age group. And I would disagree. For me, this something that's super important. And for my husband and I, many conversations to get to that point where we had an understanding. This is why, I want to
So,
teach.
what kind of framework do you see, or how should we, as a binational couple, how should we go into this kind of discussion? So, should it be first, here's my culture, here's your culture, what kind of culture do we have at home? And then what I do with my clients, which we do it differently, right? Because for me, it's
Mhm.
more about getting more centered about what is the life that I would like to have and how to achieve that. And it's more like career oriented. However, I go in this life vision too. And the first thing that I suggest is as well to look at what are the rules that I want to see, the values and the rules that I want
Mhm.
to see in the family. How do you suggest your client to work the different layers?
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is my clients have usually been together for over 10 years. So some of this they think they already know,
Exactly. I have
right?
seen one post of that. I say, oh, she's so true.
Yeah, they think they already know. Oh, I already know what makes, his or her culture there the way it is, and I know their little idiosyncrasies and things, but it's like, no, your culture will always be a part of you, especially as you get older. It's kind of your go-to habit response without even realizing it, right? So when I have a couple come to me and I can tell there's some cultural clashes here, I usually call it out and I go, well, I'm seeing a really big cultural difference. And usually I get, well, no, 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 this is like a personality thing we've always had. And I go, well, let me point out why I see a cultural difference. And then I will say, in this particular culture, maybe like Asian culture, this is what's important. And shame is used in a way of this and da da da. And here we are in Europe, and this is what's important here. And they're like, oh, I didn't even think you're right. Like I forgot about that. But the problem is like once we figure out it's a cultural difference, what do you do with that? Like,
Yes.
okay, great, it's a cultural difference. So I say to couples first, go back to what makes your culture the way it is. What are some of the like hallmark kind of things about your culture? Like you said, for the French people, meals are important. There's a certain way they need to be in this family time and things, right? Then going, okay, because of that, the values I learned were connection, communication. What is it you learn from them? And
Yes.
then decide, is it the mealtime that's the most important? Which I, as a therapist, would say absolutely is. But is it the mealtime that's important? Or is it teaching my boys how to connect, how to ask questions, how to be involved in conversation? Like that piece. And then we can come to the table with our partner and say, here are the values that are important to me based
Mhm.
on my cultural conditioning. Some things I don't agree with and we're not going to do. And then some things I really think are important. Let's reevaluate how we've been doing things. Let's reevaluate how we are relating to each other, because being in particular parts of Europe and different countries around the world too, there can be a power dynamic imbalance based on who makes more money versus the other person. And then it becomes arguments around, well, you should do more of the work at home versus, because I'm making the money. And these fights can occur the longer we're together, because usually that income gap gets a little bit bigger if one was able to do a longer career and not have to take breaks for whatever reason, for moving, for visa issues, for
for
parenthood.
languages, for whatever. Yeah.
Absolutely. There's all sorts of, it's never just, people always think women when it comes to the career gap, but that's not true.
That's true.
So there's that piece. And being able to say, have we fallen into some patterns of our culture we don't actually want to actively do, but we're doing it out of habit because we're stressed, we're overwhelmed, and it just is the go-to. And we're starting to feel resentment because they were expectations based on our culture that aren't being met, but we never communicated them. Or we always said we wouldn't be that way, but due to stress and life and health and whatever, aging parents and the kids and all this, we fell into that pattern. And now we need to intentionally work ourselves out of that hole. And that's really difficult. So why I say it's difficult, because it's what we talk about, like marriage is hard work. Everybody's work in marriage is different. Typically, it's around communication and connection and different things, and intimacy and vulnerability. But where and how and why is always different. We make our own smoothie when we come together. And when you add different cultures, you bring in a whole nother level of smoothie flavors, right? So being able to better understand what's in that smoothie and what do we want to keep or not? How do we start to shift some of those things? It's really important. When I work with couples who are, one's from an Asian country, one's from a European country, shame is used in both continents. Shame is used in very different ways, though.
Okay.
Shame is used in parenting in different ways. Shame is used in the government and politics in different ways. And so it will play out in a relationship without them realizing that's what they're doing. It takes someone coming from the outside and going, whoa, y'all are playing the shame game, or your guilt, or whatever word you want to use, creating fear and this back and forth and back and forth. And a tennis match that I don't even know you realize you're playing. And the more that we start to bring awareness to, hey, is this more about the values of your culture? Is this important to you because it's what you grew up with? Then when we ask those curious questions, we get better answers than attacking. And I don't like that you're doing this, and you never listen to me, and you don't care about my things and what I want. And it's like, whoa, let's go back to
I live in your country. I speak your language. So
yes, absolutely. I remember a story I share often is I remember talking to my husband, and I had built this whole like laundry list of all the ways I had to change and adapt my life for my husband. And I came to him and I was like, I just feel like I've done, I just feel like I have adapted and changed so much for you. And I feel like I could probably list on one hand the things you had to change for me. And he was like, really? And he just started listing all these things. Ooh, lights back on. He started listing all these things. And I was like, I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't thought about that one either. Right. And I felt very angry. My ego and my pride were a little bit hit. And I had to go for a walk afterwards. But I came back to the realization of like, we both have had to make adaptations in different ways, that it's so much easier to see your own pain and to see your ways, how you've had to change, than how your partner did.
I think maybe one other layer is as well that I believe as well that my husband had to adapt as well because of me being from another country, definitely. And I think at home he has to adapt maybe as much as I have to adapt myself. So like both. Like I do believe that definitely. However, so the one coming from another culture and living in the culture or the country from the other has to adapt outside as well, like at work. And it's what I see as well. So with my client, it's like sometimes I have so many confrontation at work because they are different, that they have indeed the impression that they have to adapt everywhere. And that's difficult. So for the other person that living in his own country, he has to adapt at home, which is already a lot, because and it even doesn't know about that, or it's more subtle maybe because he is at home.
Right. Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and the one coming knows then he has to, or she has to adapt. But yeah, it's do you see that sometimes that it's not really the home that is the problem, but it's more outside of home, like the adaptation outside of home that is so difficult that sometimes this one person would like to be a little bit more um, people to care maybe a little bit more, or maybe to ask to adapt a little bit less at home or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Right. The external stressors. I mean, it's just like anyone who goes to work and has an extremely stressful day and hits every red light, or the bus is late, or all the negatives, and it comes home and impacts the relationship. So that's like magnified. Like I've got to speak this language, and these people didn't understand me today, and they looked at me funny when I spoke, and I'm college educated and I know what I'm talking about, but I can't speak it in their language. And then I had to go fill out this paperwork and I didn't understand it. Like, yeah, there's all these ways we have to adapt and adjust and assimilate. And because our partner's from that country, we group them in with those people.
Yes, you're right.
Culture and this thing. And another interesting, let's throw this in the mix. What if both people are from different countries and now live in a third new country?
I thought it might be
Yeah.
easier, but is it easier?
No,
No.
because what happens is one of them might like the country more than the other. And so the one who doesn't like the country isn't probably going to make as much of an effort or feel, everything's going to, it's like a gray, rainy day every day. Whereas the other's like, oh, and I met this person and this person was really nice. They're going to be more eager to learn the language. If one of you learns languages better than the other and faster, that's another piece, right? And so there's just this sort of dynamic of, well, I assumed, like, if you're moving to their home country, I assumed you would help me more, take care of me more. It would be easier because I had an expert. And then you have the dynamic of neither of us are experts. One of us has to figure it out. And if you both are dropping every ball and there's no support, then it's easy to feel like our relationship is failing and breaking versus, wow, we're in probably one of the most stressful situations, speaking a language neither of us have learned, or maybe one of us learned in high school and had, or college and hasn't used since, and figuring out how to do that. But usually if you move in those situations, you've moved for work. It's not often that a couple's like, we don't know that language or that country. We're both from different countries and languages. Let's just jump in. Usually it's work, particular or different situations like that, where it's like something brought you to an opportunity, brought you to that country. And for one of you, it's a little bit easier then. If you have the work there, you're going to have the community already. You're going to have people who invite you for a drink after work or say, hey, come have lunch with us. And the other person's at home, maybe can't get the visa to work in that country, going, what do I do? I'm used to have this big position in my home country. Then I moved to this other country and I could barely work there. And now I'm in a country I don't get a visa to work. And so there's just this pattern of all the external stuff can make us feel like our relationship is having problems. And it's so important. It's a lot like when we think, oh, you didn't take out the trash. Oh, you forgot to do this. You didn't pick up the milk. You didn't we always equate that to our relationship and not to systems in the home.
Yes.
Running our home a bit more like a business, right? So being able to go, my personal struggles of moving to this new country and how I'm adapting and struggling isn't a reflection that my marriage or my relationship is struggling. It's how we're interacting with each other and the unspoken expectations. I thought you'd be more of a help. I thought you would take the lead on this. I thought you would learn the language better. Nobody wants to say those things in the beginning. We just want to be like hurt and in our own little cocoon or loving the new country and like exploring all the time. But having open communication about our experience. And those of you who are watching or listening or watching the replay, if you're in a multicultural, bicultural relationship, have the conversation now about what it was like. Because I bet there's still things that you haven't talked about, of expectations you had, of the challenges you went through, that will open your eyes to each other in a whole different way.
Yeah, I agree. I think there is so many challenges that we went somehow through it. So we had this discussion with like my career change, that it was a big learning from my relationship with my husband, and the assumption that I had, like that should
Yeah.
be this way, it should be this way, and so on. And culture is definitely a part of it as well, because we all think that, yeah, the position of one person in the family might be different from one culture to another. And some challenges, like in life we have different kind of challenges, every time is different. So when you are only for two, is like you have your challenges. When children come on top, it's like a new situation, new challenges, new culture layer coming on top, and then we continue with that later. And at some point, indeed, some of us want to go back, maybe home or not. So there is, every part of the life comes with new challenges, and maybe moving and losing the job, and so on and so on. So what is the, when you meet people that they are on this like big big break in their life, where there is like a big challenge coming, or parents are sick and they live far away, and then the life has another meaning, and then you have like this breakthrough of these big things coming. How do you help them to process that?
Yeah. This is a good question. And we're coming up on the 7th anniversary of my mom's death in October. And so my husband and I have had to walk this, when what you didn't expect to have happen, or the things that you thought maybe would happen later on, come sooner. And how do you navigate that as a couple? And how do you navigate that when there's different countries involved, right? So when I work with a couple, let's say this is after the event has happened, and it's pretty rocky in the relationship, usually because of again, it's a lot of external stressors. There's a lot of emotions and feelings involved, and a lot of beliefs as well, right? When it comes to aging parents or parents who die, there's a lot of sense of, well, I should, as the child, I'm supposed to, whether it be family norms, cultural norms, personal values, right? And our partner may not align with those. So if you're in a situation where you're post something major happening, this is a good time to talk about, hey, I noticed within myself, I got really angry and irritated, embarrassed, frustrated, whatever it is, by some of the ways you reacted or some of the things you said, because I have the expectation of XYZ. And they might go, well, I know you have that expectation, but that doesn't fit with our lifestyle, right? Let it be an open conversation. We tend to create debates out of things where it's like, let's just better understand each other. And if you need to do it via email, writing emails back and forth, because then you take the emotion out, do it. If you need to handwrite it, do it. I would stay away from text messaging, because there's just so much you can write in a little screen. But there's something about having the space to share. I had these expectations. I thought you would be here for me emotionally in these ways. And if you're married to someone from a culture that emotional intelligence isn't typically strong, or it's just not something that's taught, and that's most cultures, let's be honest. But then there's this, they may not know how to be that support, but you expected it of them because you were kind of like, in my situation, not expected, emergency call, that kind of thing, where my mom died in her sleep. That thankfully my husband and I have been together long enough, and he's married to a therapist, that he was able to know kind of like how to be a support. But had I not had that, I can see in this group where we live, and around the people we're around, he may not have known how to support me. And it would have been like, let's go back to work. Let's do the thing. Okay, let's just, I'll check on you occasionally, but I don't really know how to be a support in this scenario. That would have been really hard. And we both would have had to honor the fact that there was a difficult situation, and we didn't know how to be a support or ask for support because of our family background, our cultural background, our personality, if you're more of a thinker than a feeler, right? If you're a couple that hasn't gone through that, but like aging parents, some things are happening, talk about what are the expectations you feel from your family and your culture around taking care of your parents, around if someone passes away or dies in the family? Are you financially responsible for things? What are the things you guys have already talked about within your family of origin about how things will be taken care of, who gets what? It feels very business and transactional, but the information is what actually helps in the situation when it happens. Just to know these are the expectations. Here are the things that we will agree to do and not agree to do, because yes, it might be that one of us has to leave and be gone for weeks or months because of a situation. Talk as a couple now and go, if we're in this situation in the future, who can be our help? Who can we call upon? If you've got kids, who can be the one to support? What type of time can you take off of work if you need to? These things, we don't like to plan for the rainy days, but they happen. Like,
Yeah,
that's
that's
life.
that's the difficulty, right? When everything is fine, so we don't really want to bring the
Right.
difficult subject on the table. But what I understand from what you say is that when we are already in this emotional situation, is not to try to go directly to the solution, but to
Yeah.
really have the space to just share
Yeah.
without digging for any solution yet, but having the moment where, okay, I just share. That's it. That's it. It's just a sharing process. And when we both shared enough, then at some point the emotion can go a little bit down, and then we can find the right solution.
Yes.
But it's difficult to do when the emotion is so high, and when we are so used to go directly to the solutions,
Yes.
because it's the process that we all know. We don't really have, like, we never trained the process of just sharing without
Mhm.
outcome. So that's the difficulty. So it's like really find, maybe it's something that we can indeed, so we can learn to do. Like, I just share, and I don't want any kind of solutions yet. There is no solution to bring on the table yet. And then when the big moments and
Right.
the dramatic moment come, so we are used to just share and hold the space, as you say.
Yeah. And if you brought an umbrella every day outside with you, eventually it is going to rain. So you can't feel like, oh, I made it rain today because I brought the umbrella out. Well, all the other days it didn't rain. So don't think by having the conversation you're going to encourage or make it happen. It's just naturally going to occur. And maybe by a bit of insight of, hey, we should have this conversation, it does come sooner because you're like, oh, I can tell things aren't going well. And that's why you have the conversation. But completely come from a place of curiosity. Be careful not to ask, well, why? Why is that? I don't get why you guys would do that. Why is attacking? Why is
Yeah.
judgmental, right? When we ask that question, unless we say it very soft and very neutral, it's very difficult to do. But if we can say, can you help me better understand? Can you tell me more about? You could say, I'm having a hard time understanding. I want to, though. Make sure you say, I want to, because I'm having a hard time understanding is not like, well, I've explained it 5 times, but I'm having a hard time understanding and I want to better understand. Can you give me an example? And I love to use analogies in my work, but also with my partner, because sometimes we can't think of our situation in a certain way, but if I can use an example, it gives them a more clarity. Like, it's like, it's like this weather pattern, or it's like, if your email inbox, you finally emptied it out and then the next day it's full again, right? Like, people get those analogies.
Yes, yes,
And so
yes.
being able to use that to explain some of the cultural norms, why we get defensive and reactive when our partner asks us questions, because half the time we don't understand either. We just know it is. We don't want to have to explain it. We wish they would just accept it. But the reality is we need to better understand our why without being asked it. Why is it important to me that I go and support my aging parents and I need to live closer to them? Well, because I feel a sense of responsibility and I would feel guilty if I didn't. And if I felt guilty, that would mean I am bad and something's wrong with me, right? Like, this is where we have to, like, therapize ourselves. What is the core that I don't want to feel or experience? And because of that, I'm going to impact my relationship so that I don't have to go through that, right? And what is my partner willing to help me to not have to feel that? Or what is it like, hey, this is my line in the sand. You can't be gone for 2 months. 1 month I can make work, but 2 months I can't. Well, you don't support and love me. No, this is called compromise. This is about understanding you're in a partnership, right? And so this is that piece where the more that we can learn how to have healthier conversations around curious things, like, hey, I want to know more about this. I wonder about this. Then when the situation occurs, we're in such a better spot to handle it. And, you know, in our situation with my husband and I, his gut instinct, I was like, I'll just take a week away, because we had 2 really young kids, 2 and 4 at the time. And it was like, I'll just take a week away. And he's like, absolutely not. You're going for at least 2 weeks. We will make this work. Right. Like, he was just really able to be a support. And he's like, I can't take the 2 weeks, but I can be there for this week. And that just was like, it took the pressure off of me of having to make decisions in a moment of complete and total shock and grief. And it gave him a sense of, I can do something to help. And in those moments, it's really important to come together rather than to push each other apart. And I find with couples, if they don't know how to be more vulnerable and open and honest with each other in the day-to-day, then in those moments of crisis, it's either it does bring them together, or it really can push them even further apart.
Yeah, I understand. What I have seen as well is sometimes the partner, or we cannot understand the partner, or the partner cannot understand us, even if he try or she tries. Like, I really would like to understand you, but I just can't. But what I can see, like, I believe that, like, my husband is really great at that, even if he doesn't understand, he respect that. But I don't know how much I think it's possible, because at some point he can understand me. I hope so. But I think at some point maybe that's not possible anymore. So for me, it's kind of like really like love or freedom, or I don't understand you, but I kind of respect that you need that. And that's why I try to give it, or to open the space for that. Right. How much that is possible, or what is the problem of that, if there is a problem with that?
Yeah, no, I do find that divide will start to grow of like, okay, I just respect that you're this way, even though I don't understand it. There's a point where there needs to be some level of understanding. Usually that is when it's good to have a third person come in who has some cultural awareness to go, oh, well, it would be like this in your culture, or like this in your family. And they'd be like, I've never seen it that way. I've never understood it that way. And you might be like, well, I've been trying to explain it that way the whole time. Often it's also because, our partner becomes sort of like the kitchen sink that keeps dropping a little bit of water, like, bloop, bloop, like, oh, I'll get to it. And then we just kind of don't hear it anymore. So having an outsider explain that. I also love having like double dates with other bicultural couples, because we can laugh about and talk about these things. And some of the stories help you have more clarity around your own differences. And, oh, that's why. We just had family visiting from the States, and it was even clarity for me of like, oh, that's why I make jokes like that. That's why I say things like that. Because when we're far away from our family for so long, or far away from our culture, we forget some of the nuances that makes us us. We just know they're there.
Yeah.
And in that, I started to better understand myself so that I can better explain myself to my partner later on. So it really just depends on what are the things that our partner doesn't understand. Are they choosing not to try to understand by not asking those curious questions? Gosh, it'd take a lot of work to understand. I feel overwhelmed. I got too much on my plate anyways.
Yes.
Or is it often it's that, or is it a sense of like a disconnect of empathy? Like, I don't know how to grasp into a feeling of that, because I've detached from that within myself, and I don't want to feel that. And that piece can be really hard. Often, the things we don't understand about our partner is actually something that we have a similar value or thought or feeling or belief on as well. We just come at it from a different angle. So my husband and I used to clash a lot around the word freedom, because freedom for him had a very like business sort of mindset. And for me, it was like options and like, I didn't need it to have the business side to it. Well, then all of a sudden I had a realization years later, oh, it's both about freedom. We both want freedom. We want freedom from different angles and different ways. And because of that, we're clashing. We're clashing because we have different ways to get to the same goal, because we have different definitions of the goal. So once we figured out we have a similar value, we call it by different names, language, right? Different languages. We have different definitions for it as well, and different nuances. But at the end of the day, the feeling we want is the same.
Yes.
And because of that, now we better understand each other. I might not get why it's so important that it looks a certain way and goes a certain direction, but I actually know what the end result is he's looking for. Got it. We both value that, right? In retirement, that's what we desire to have. But for me, I want to go about it more this way, live my life more in the moment, enjoy, different perspectives and very future oriented. So being able to better understand what that was that actually was similar about us versus I don't understand you, which was causing us to clash. Even I respect you, but like, I don't get it. That was the thread that was missing. So often it takes, though, some time, some thinking, doing some inner work, and reflecting on our relationship to pick out those moments too.
So it's a lot of work, right?
It is. Every relationship is. Every co-work relationship, every friendship, every family member, every relationship is. You have to choose to make that work mean something.
Yeah. So how do you help? I know you have programs and so on. So how do you help your client, the client that comes to you and they say, okay, I would like to work on my couple. Maybe everything is fine, but because of this discussion, like I think it would be interesting for me to work on it. How does that work when people would like to work with you?
Yeah, so I always set up with them a free 45-minute call. That gives us all time to get to know each other on a different level. But for me, I call it a relationship game plan call. Like I really want to hear what are the challenges, how long they've been going on, so that I can get sort of a bird's eye view and kind of go, do you notice y'all swerve left when you want to be swerving right? Do you notice you're so focused on this tree and not the forest of the greater goal you have? And being able to kind of pull out some of these nuances. And then I can say, hey, usually the way I work with couples is called the rebuild method. And it's very much kind of the mindset of, having a house and going, okay, the foundation has cracks in it now, and that wall is starting to collapse, and like this isn't working, because what helped us the first decade in our relationship isn't going to keep us and sustain us for the next decades. It's actually what tears us down. Because the first decade of our relationship is like a little bit of honeymoon, life situations, crises, all these things, trying to figuring ourselves out individually. And it's a lot like, I always think about like phones, right? When there's a new phone, the upgrade, the next version, it doesn't mean the one before it was broken. We don't need to go off to the next relationship. It means we've learned new technologies. We've learned new things. We've like adjusted to how the user uses the phone, right? And then we create the new version. In our relationship, and I love doing this every 7 to 10 years because that's usually when we get the itch anyways, we go, what used to work for us and isn't working for us anymore? What are the stuff that we're not here for anymore? I'm tired of showing up in this way. I'm not going to people please anymore. I'm going to start saying no when I used to say yes, and you're not going to like it, right? These things. Or I'm about to change my career, as you know, when the people, and I need you to be behind me on this. Like things are about to change. And so being able to have those discussions, and then the rebuild method we talk about, let's just tear it down, but we'll keep the parts we like. Did you like that column? Did you like those, those pictures, those memories, those things? Bring it and create and basically renovate in a sense, right? Rebuild and renovate a new home.
That's really interesting because it's kind of the same that I do with the career. It's like keep the talent, the skills you love, you still want to use.
Yeah.
And the rest, you can just put that on the side and rebuild something from that. So what you say, it's kind of the same. It's like take what's working, what you love about both of us and so on, and then continue to build on that.
And that's where you get to go, where are the cultural pieces that have been missing, neglected, not understood, they can
Mm-hmm.
start to come back into our home and be the wallpaper or the roof or whatever, all of these things. And giving a couple that analogy, they start to go, okay, yeah, what hit at the foundation of our relationship? What is the stuff that's impacted us? And how do we strengthen that? A lot of couples come to me and they haven't been intimate in months, if not years. And they'll be like, oh, we haven't been doing this. And I'm like, I'm going to be honest, that's the last thing I'm going to touch and work with you guys on, because your communication is number one, and the trust and the respect are like 2 and 3 with the connection, right? There's like these top 4 I usually work on.
So
And then the rest
communication,
comes.
trust, respect, and then the
And
rest comes with
connection.
it.
Yeah. And connection starts to then like feed into that. But often we're like, oh, I respect my partner. I totally respect them. But then we like interrupt them. We roll our eyes. We walk away from them. We try to fix things rather than believing that they can do it on their own, and don't even allow them to ask, can you help me? Right? Like, that's not respect. So we work on all those things, and then like the intimacy occurs. But usually there is that we're coming in because our communication bad and we haven't really done anything in the bedroom for a year.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, so we're going to work on these core things that make you feel safe, and that you feel trust, and you feel dependability on your partner. And then we're going to bring in the rest of those pieces. And that's, the rebuild method is really looking at those core, that foundation, and then the rest starts to build itself quite fast once you start to build that foundation.
How long does that happen, or how long do you need?
So I love when I first start working with a couple, I always say 6 months, give me 6 months. If they're on the fence and they're like really leaning towards divorce, I say, give me 4 months, but we need to work intensely together.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
They get homework, they get different things that they can listen to and work on. And in that time, I go, you're going to have the hell yeah, this is working. This is amazing. Holy cow. Wow. And then you're going to hit a point where you start coasting. Somebody gets sick. Somebody's traveling. There's a holiday and we don't have our sessions on regular times. And you're going to stop being intentional about the work you were doing and go back into habit. And you're going to be like, boom. Do not feel like you've gone down, into the basement of, oh, nothing's working anymore. Remember the tools you've learned. And usually we have one session where it's always, I give them a big pep talk and a big kick in the butt. And I'm like, y'all dropped the ball. Let's be honest. And they're like, oh, you're right. It's always uncomfortable, but at that point we've worked together long enough where I'm like, I'm going to call it spade, right? And then it's like, bam, it shoots up really fast, because it's like, you're right. We needed to look in the mirror and stop pointing the finger at the other person, see where we dropped the ball ourselves, what we need to work on, get back and doing our homework assignments, get back into our intentional practices in our relationship. And then so really I always say, give me 6 months, be the hard worker and motivated. And you see the change really fast. And then after the 6 months, I usually have couples come in to see me either once a month or once every 2 months to do this is our space where we can actually talk, and we blocked it on our calendar and nobody's interrupting us. And I'm like, this is your time. I'll be here to navigate and kind of help, like, oh, wait, we're falling back into patterns, but it gives them that space. And sometimes we need that accountability to making sure we're taking the time to have hard conversations.
I like it. You start bald. You start soon. You start soon a new 6 months program or something like that. So tell us about that and why you decided to do that. So what kind of relationship it has with the Rebuild program?
So like I shared in the beginning, most of the couples I work with have been together for over 10, 15 years. So the woman in the relationship is going through perimenopause. And I noticed that the women who were struggling with this phase in life, who lived abroad, often felt very alone. They felt very alone in their relationship too. And their partner just didn't know how to support them. And I noticed it wasn't a type of support the partner could give them. It was a type of support that they needed, one, through education of what's going on with them, what's happening, and removing the stigma around talking about it. So I formed a community of women. We start October 6th, and we're meeting weekly to have a discussion about what's going on, how it's impacting our relationships, our work, how we feel about ourselves, how
Yes.
our bodies are changing. One of the bonuses to joining the group is a decades workbook, and it's almost 50 pages long, which I know scares people, but it's like, it goes through your 20s and it has you really go through and go like, what did you learn in these areas of your life? And what are you bringing basically to that next chapter of your life? Kind of like rebuilding. This is called the reconnection space. And it's this wonderful community where I have experts like you coming in too. And so we have this space of about 10 women who are able to ask questions privately with an expert as well and say, I'd like to know more about this, or I'm having these changes happened. We're going to be talking about the neuroscience of perimenopause. So being able to talk about the foggy brain and the different things that we're feeling and our tolerance levels in life, or the rage that we're experiencing.
The
right?
emotion, yes, exactly.
Yes.
The emotional
Like,
ups and downs, yeah.
in literally 10-minute window, you feel like
Yes.
you've experienced every emotion on the emotion wheel. And I just wanted to have that space, and specifically for women living abroad who speak English, because you don't then have to navigate, did I say that right in that language? I don't know the vocabulary for how to explain this to my doctor. I want to ask another doctor, but I'm afraid to make another appointment. So I've got gynecologists coming in and talking to us, right? Like being able to have that. And it's this online community. So the women are from all over. We're representing right now, we're representing Europe because the time of day we meet is at lunchtime here in Europe.
Okay.
But it's open to anyone wherever you are. Our meetings are Tuesdays from 12:30 to 1:30 p.m. And we would love to have you if you're in that phase of life and you're like, yep, I need that, come join us. It's katierussler.com/reconnection-space. Would love to have you join us. And if you're not sure if it's for you, you can set up just a free 20-minute call with me and we kind of see if it's the right fit.
Yes.
Often people are like, well, I don't know if I want to talk about private things, but I'm telling you, in these groups, you will not feel like you're talking about private things because everyone's opening up. You just feel like, oh, okay, this is normal. It feels safe. And we
Yes, I
learn from
agree.
each other. And you feel encouraged by what others are going through and the types of questions and things they're experiencing.
Yeah, and there is no taboo, so on. So it's so easy then to say, "Oh, I am normal." So what I feel and how I act, and that's okay. That's normal, and indeed, so this community are so interesting and important, and it's different. So we have friends and so on, but still, so in this kind of community, we can share differently. And
Yes.
with expert, as you say, so I found that really interesting. So you have your podcast. People can find you on your podcast as well, right? Because it's
Yes.
one way to be in touch with you. And I love what you share on your podcast, on your Instagram. So there is so practical things as well, like the triangle, or like you said about when, even if you are in a country for a long period of time and you think, I figure it out.
I know
So
it.
then, then you have like the wave coming back maybe later. I find that so interesting. So yeah. So under this video, I'm going to share your podcasts, your Instagram.
Thank you. Yeah, the podcast is called Relationship Reset. Today's episode is called The Invisible Divorce, and better understanding what it is. And most of us are probably going through it, unfortunately, this season in our lives. How do we break that cycle and better understand what's causing it? So each episode's about 12 to 15 minutes long, unless I'm interviewing an expert. And I always give homework at the end too, because it's just true to my nature. So if you're like, hey, I don't know if my partner would be willing to invest in doing the work, listen to an episode together and do the questions that I have you, like journal it out and then talk together, and you're going to already start making some steps forward.
And I believe, so one last question, because I found that very interesting as well. Sometimes one of the partner want to work on the relationship, but the other is not ready yet, or doesn't understand, or is too afraid, or whatsoever. What do you give as an advice for these people?
So one of the things I always say is therapy isn't for everyone. It truly isn't, but learning relationship skills is. So I would approach it with my partner as, I don't need us to go to therapy. I need us to learn new skills, just like we're at work and we've got to learn better XYZ, right? Management, team building, whatever. And we don't have these skills. What ways are you willing to learn those skills together? Is it a book? Is it a podcast that we listen to weekly, right? And do the homework? Is it a course? is it working with someone? Because we have to factor in family and cultural norms around this too, of getting help and asking for help. And if your partner's like, none of it, I don't think we need to learn it, we'll figure it out on our own, you can say, well, that's not been working for us. And for me, to be able to stay in this relationship and see it grow in healthy ways is really important, because I want us to have a great sex life, to have fun together when we're in our 60s and 70s. I want us to, like, tell the vision of what you want.
Yes,
and they'll
exactly.
be like,
that's a good
right?
seller.
I don't want to be angry and nagging you like your mother all the time. I want passion. I want fun. Yes, we're in a stressful season, but after this is done, I want it to be awesome. And paint
Together,
the vision. And then it'd be like, so how are we going to make that happen? Because right now this is not working, and we've been just trying to figure it out on our own. I wouldn't push it too hard. I would just keep planting seeds. And if they're like, I don't know, I need to think about it. Perfect. Then in 48 hours, I'm coming back to check and see what you've got. And just be like, so what did you think? I don't want to have to take the lead on this. So together, let's look at the books on Amazon together. What do you think about this one? Should we read Us? Should we read the Gottman's book? Should we read Esther Perel's? And then you make it about a communal decision, even if they've said no along the way. Understand they don't want to talk about the therapy type stuff. They don't want to dig to the deep feelings and the memories. That's uncomfortable. And there is such thing as a vulnerability hangover. It actually physically can make you sick. Some people throw up after, right? That can happen in work. That can happen in therapy. It can happen in all sorts of situations. But we have to honor and respect that. But learning skills, anyone can do. It's like me being like, okay, us going back to school and being like, do you remember like Excel spreadsheet when you needed to learn Word and PowerPoint and Excel spreadsheet? We used to all have to take a class in that. It is difficult and doesn't always make sense for those of us who are not Excel spreadsheet people. But once we learn it, we know how to do it. It may not come naturally, but we've got it figured out. We know the steps. That's the same with relationship skills. So the more we paint it to our partner that way, it feels less daunting and threatening. Like we're going to have to rehash every argument. No, half the time I tell the couples, I don't want to hear it because it's smoke screen. It's a smoke screen to what's really going on. And I have particular exercises that pull that to the surface so that they talk about the real issue. Not, the toilet paper or the trash, or you didn't pick this up, or you talked to our kid a certain way, or you don't care about my culture. Okay, but what's the deeper? I know it feels like that's the deeper. It's not. What's the deeper issue?
Yeah, it's really interesting the way you sell the fact to work together, like because my husband wouldn't go to any kind of therapy, but indeed, so I achieved once that we go to a workshop together. It was about communication, non-violent communication, but it was really about the structure of it and so on. And it was really interesting that he picked something up, and we still use it today. And I think that helped a lot. So without knowing, I did something like that. But the way I really love the way, because I was like, okay, I want to sign in too. So
come join, do it.
Perfect. Okay, so we are at the end of our hour together. I really thank you for your time, Kathy. What is the last sentence or the last message you would like to give to the people listen to us? I know that there is one person here in the bed having flu and listening to us, so I'm really sorry about that. I hope that you enjoyed this 1 hour together. So what is the one message you would like to share?
I think the one message specifically to those who are in bicultural relationships or living abroad is remember to ask curious questions. When you don't understand something, or even when you think you already understand it, let's stop making assumptions about our partners and ask curious questions with the desire to actually know, not to get our point proven. Yeah, see, It is this. Don't do that. Like this game we play with our partners is just so unhealthy, and it adds to what we're tired of having in our relationship. Ask curious questions. Get to know your partner again. You've been together for a while doesn't mean you know everything about them, I promise you. So ask curious questions.
Okay, so ask curious question. I like that, the idea to rediscover your partner. It's like Nice.
It's fun. It's like
yes, it is.
courtship again, right? It's like dating again.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Love that. I think I'm going to date my husband later.
Good. I like it.
Thank you very much for being with you. Thank you for everyone listening to this on LinkedIn, on Instagram, maybe if it worked. I have to have a look at that. And anyway, I'm going to put the video again. So on Instagram, if it's not yet, or on YouTube.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Bye to everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.